David stood by the doorway, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him like a heavy cloud. The house, usually full of laughter and noise from his twin boys, Ethan and Evan, was quiet today. His heart thumped hard as he looked down at the two little faces staring up at him with innocent eyes full of confusion. Their mother was in the corner of the room, folding clothes silently into a suitcase. Her movements were mechanical, like someone who had long given up on caring. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were now distant and cold. "Mommy, where are you going?" Ethan's voice was soft, almost afraid to break the silence. She didn't answer. She kept folding the clothes, her hands trembling slightly. David stepped closer, feeling his chest tighten. "Please, just tell us," Evan whispered, tears welling up in his eyes. Finally, she looked up. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy with unshed tears, but there was a hard edge in her voice. "I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore." David's world seemed to shatter. He wanted to reach out, to hold her, to beg her to stay, but the words stuck in his throat. "Leaving? But what about the boys? What about us?" She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm tired, David. I'm tired of struggling, of fighting every day. I don't love you anymore. I need to find myself." Ethan clung to David's leg, his small face crumpling as tears spilled freely. Evan began to cry quietly, his sobs breaking the heavy silence. David knelt down and pulled the boys close, feeling their tiny bodies shaking with fear and sadness. "It's going to be okay," he whispered, even though he wasn't sure if it was true. The front door clicked shut behind her, and the sound echoed through the empty house. The house that once held so much hope now felt hollow and cold. Days passed like a blur. David woke early every morning to prepare breakfast for the boys. Sometimes it was just porridge, sometimes bread and eggs if he was lucky. The small apartment they lived in was cramped, but it was home, for now. He learned to juggle work and childcare. Mornings he dropped the boys off at the neighbors before rushing to his job at the factory. Afternoons, he picked them up and tried to keep the boys entertained, reading stories, playing with whatever toys they had. He didn't have family nearby to help. His own parents lived in another city and had their own struggles. Friends drifted away, unsure how to support a single dad with two little kids. But David never gave up. Every night, after the boys were asleep, he sat alone in the dim light of their small living room, reflecting on what had happened. Sometimes he cried quietly. Sometimes he felt overwhelmed by the weight of his new reality. One night, as he looked at the sleeping faces of Ethan and Evan, he whispered a promise. "I will take care of you. I will give you a better life. I will never let you down." Money was tight. Bills piled up. Sometimes the electricity got cut off. Sometimes the fridge was nearly empty. But David worked longer hours. He picked up extra shifts. He even cleaned houses on weekends to make ends meet. Slowly, life began to settle into a new rhythm. The boys started preschool, where they made new friends and learned to count and sing songs. David celebrated every little milestone. The first time Ethan said, "Dada," clearly, the first time Evan took his first steps. Though the pain of his wife's abandonment never fully left, David found strength in his boys. Their smiles, their laughter, their hugs, these were the moments that kept him going. One afternoon, while walking home from preschool, Ethan tugged David's hand. "Daddy, will Mommy come back?" David stopped and looked at his son's hopeful eyes. He swallowed hard, then smiled gently. "I don't know, Ethan. But no matter what, Daddy will always be here for you and Evan. We're a family, just us." The boys smiled, and David felt a warmth spread through his chest. Maybe this new family was enough. Months turned into years. David worked hard, saved what little he could, and watched his boys grow into bright, curious children. He taught them values, kindness, honesty, and the importance of never giving up. But life had more surprises in store. Unbeknownst to David and his boys, their future held opportunities they never dreamed of, chances that would change everything. For now, though, David focused on each day, each smile, each hug. Because in the midst of loss and heartbreak, he had found something stronger, hope. The sun was just rising when David kissed his boys goodbye and stepped out the door. The early morning air was cool and crisp, but it couldn't cool the fire burning inside him, a fierce determination to make life better for Ethan and Evan. His job at the factory was hard and tiring. The long hours, the noise of machines, the constant pressure to meet deadlines, it was exhausting. But David never complained. He knew every drop of sweat was for his sons. During breaks, he thought about the twins. He pictured their laughter, their bright eyes, their little hands reaching for his. No matter how tired he was, those thoughts gave him strength. Back at home, his routine was tough. Feeding 2 hungry boys on a tight budget was a daily challenge. Some days, there was just enough food to fill their stomachs. Other days, they ate less than they needed. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Evan said one evening, his voice soft but firm. David looked at the small bowl of rice and beans he'd managed to cook and smiled gently. "We'll eat well tomorrow, buddy. I promise." Ethan nodded, trying to be brave. "Daddy, can we play after dinner?" David laughed, the sound tired but warm. "Of course. We'll play all the games you want." Despite the hardship, the boys never lost their joy. Their laughter filled the small apartment, lighting up the darkest corners. David made sure to celebrate every little victory. When Ethan learned to tie his shoes, David cheered like he'd won a championship. When Evan brought home a star sticker from preschool, David pinned it on the fridge like a medal. The boys loved stories. Every night, David told them tales of heroes, adventures, and magic. But his favorite stories were about hope, how even when things seem impossible, there's always a way forward. One rainy afternoon, David sat with the boys by the window, watching drops race down the glass. "You know," he said softly, "life is like the rain. Sometimes it's heavy and cold, but after the storm, the sun always comes back." Ethan smiled. "Will the sun come back for us, Daddy?" David pulled both boys close. "Yes, my boys. The sun will shine brighter than ever for us." The years were not easy. David's muscles ached from hard labor, and the worry never left his mind. But the boys grew up kind, respectful, and full of dreams. School was a big part of their life. David wanted the twins to learn everything he never had the chance to. He spent hours helping with homework, cheering on every success. Sometimes, the twins asked about their mother. "Why did she leave us?" Ethan once asked quietly. David didn't have a perfect answer. Sometimes people make choices that hurt others. But you are loved, and that will never change. Evan nodded. "We have you, Daddy." David smiled through the lump in his throat. "Always." The neighborhood was tough. Some days, David worried about the boys' safety, the bad influences lurking around. But he taught them to be strong, to choose their own path. Neighbors watched David with respect. They admired the single father who never gave up, who raised his sons with love and discipline. One day, an older woman, Mrs. Amaka, knocked on their door. "David, I want to help," she said kindly. "I see how hard you work." David shook his head. "Thank you, ma'am, but I can manage." Mrs. Amaka smiled. "Let me know if you ever need anything. Sometimes, help comes in unexpected ways." David appreciated the offer but was too proud to accept. Still, her kindness warmed him. Despite struggles, there were moments of joy. Birthdays were celebrated with homemade cakes and homemade gifts. Christmas meant a small tree and hand-carved toys. The twins' laughter was the music that carried David through every hardship. One summer evening, David sat with the boys outside, watching the stars. "Do you know what I wish for?" he asked. Ethan looked up, eyes shining. "What, Daddy?" "To see you both happy, healthy, and successful. To never worry about money or pain." Evan smiled sleepily. "We will be, Daddy. Because you love us." David hugged them tight. "I love you more than anything." Unseen by David, beyond the city limits, a quiet opportunity was forming, a chance that would change their lives forever. But for now, they lived in the moment, surviving, loving, hoping. The years went by, and the twins grew stronger every day. Ethan and Evan, now 12 years old, were no longer the tiny boys who clung to their father's hand with uncertain steps. They were tall, bright-eyed, and full of energy, mirroring their father's resilience and heart. David's days continued to be long and grueling, working double shifts at the factory to make ends meet. But despite the exhaustion, he never missed the boys' school plays, soccer games, or even the small moments when they just needed a hug. One chilly afternoon, as David was leaving the factory, a man in a sharp suit approached him. His face was kind but carried the unmistakable air of success. "Mr. David, is it?" the man asked. David wiped the sweat from his brow and nodded cautiously. "My name is Mr. Okaro. I work with a foundation that supports hardworking families. We've heard about your dedication and wanted to offer some assistance," he said with a warm smile. David looked at him skeptically. "Assistance? Sir, I'm grateful, but I don't want charity." Mr. Okaro laughed softly. "This isn't charity, David. It's an opportunity. We believe in investing in people who invest in their family." David's heart skipped. Could this be the break he'd hoped for? Over the next few weeks, David met with Mr. Okaro and his team. They helped him enroll Ethan and Evan in a scholarship program for bright students. The twins would now attend a prestigious school, one David never dreamed possible. On the first day of school, David held the boys' hands tightly, pride swelling in his chest. "You're going to shine, boys. Show them what you're made of." Ethan smiled confidently. "We won't let you down, Daddy." Evan nodded eagerly. "We'll make you proud." School was a new world. The twins faced challenges, advanced lessons, new friends, and the occasional sting of feeling different from the other kids. But David reminded them daily, "Your strength is not in what you wear or where you come from. It's in your heart and your work." The boys began to excel academically. Their teachers praised their curiosity, kindness, and leadership. They helped classmates struggling with lessons and never forgot their humble beginnings. At home, David continued his tireless work but made more time for the boys. They studied together under the dim light of a small lamp, sharing hopes and dreams. One night, Ethan whispered, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to start a business and help people like you helped us." David smiled, tears glistening. "That's my boy." Meanwhile, David's perseverance started to pay off. The factory manager noticed his dedication and promoted him to a supervisor role. The extra income meant a little more comfort, better food, new clothes, and a safer home. But David never forgot the struggle or the lessons it taught. He saved carefully, always thinking about the boys' future. One weekend, the family visited a local market. As they walked through the stalls, a small commotion caught David's attention. A street vendor was arguing with a customer, his voice raised, face red. David recognized the vendor, an old friend who had lost his job and was trying to scrape together a living selling fruit. David approached quietly. "Let me help you." The vendor looked up, surprised. "But David, I don't want charity." David smiled. "It's not charity. It's helping a friend." He bought all the fruit, more than he could carry, and handed it to the vendor. The vendor's eyes filled with tears. "That's kindness," David said to his boys, "something we must never forget." The twins watched their father closely, learning that strength was not just in money or power, but in generosity and love. Months later, a letter arrived for David. It was from the Scholarship Foundation. "We are pleased to inform you that Ethan and Evan have been selected for a special mentorship program with top business leaders. This will prepare them for leadership roles in the future." David's hands trembled as he read the letter. This was more than he could have hoped for. As the mentorship began, Ethan and Evan met inspiring entrepreneurs and learned about hard work, creativity, and integrity. They soaked up every lesson like sponges. One mentor, the years went by, woman named and Mrs. the twins grew stronger took every a special interest in the twins. And Evan, now 12 years old, were no longer the tiny boys who clung to their father's hand not just about money, but about making a difference. Bright-eyed, Ethan and Evan nodded seriously, mirroring their father's resilience with newfound purpose. Back home, David watched his sons grow, proud but humble. He never told them about the nights he cried quietly, worried about the future. One evening, as they sat together, Ethan said, "Daddy, I want to make a promise." David looked up. "We will work hard. We will build something great, not just for us, but for others too." David hugged his boys tightly. "That's all I ever wanted." The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. this family story was far from over. The months that followed were a whirlwind of activity, hope, and hard work. Ethan and Evan threw themselves into their studies and mentorship with a seriousness that impressed everyone around them. Their schoolwork, extracurricular activities, and volunteer efforts filled every corner of their lives. But despite their packed schedules, the boys never lost sight of their roots. David watched them with pride but also with a growing sense of responsibility. He knew his own sacrifices were the foundation on which their future was being built, but he also worried. Would the boys be ready for the challenges ahead? Would they remain grounded in the values he held dear? One evening, after a particularly long day, David sat with his sons at the dinner table. The small apartment felt cozier than ever, filled with the smell of simple but warm food and the soft hum of the radio playing an old tune. "Boys," David began, "I want you to know how proud I am. You've come so far. But remember, the path won't always be easy." Ethan looked up, determination clear in his eyes. "We know, Daddy. We won't forget where we came from." Evan nodded. "We want to make you proud, not just with what we achieve, but with who we become." David smiled, his heart swelling. "That's all I've ever wanted." As the years passed, the twins grew into young men. Their achievements began to draw attention beyond their school. They won scholarships to study business and technology at a top university. David's hard work continued to provide, but now it was his sons who carried the torch of hope. One summer, during a break from university, Ethan and Evan returned home with a plan. They wanted to start a small business, something that would not only support their family but also give back to their community. David listened as they explained their idea. A tech company focused on affordable solutions for small businesses in their neighborhood. The idea was ambitious but grounded in a desire to help others rise just as they had. "Do you think we can do it?" Ethan asked, eyes bright with excitement. David took a deep breath. "If you work as hard as you study, I believe you can do anything." They spent weeks researching, planning, and pitching their idea to local investors. Some laughed, doubting two young men with humble beginnings could succeed in the competitive tech world. But others saw the fire in their eyes and gave small amounts to help them get started. Their first office was a cramped room above a noisy market, filled with second-hand computers and hand-me-down furniture. But it was theirs. The twins worked day and night, coding, meeting clients, and dreaming big. Their company quickly grew, offering affordable software that helped local shops track sales, manage inventory, and reach customers online. The community began to take notice. Shop owners smiled as they saw their businesses thrive. Customers appreciated the convenience and new opportunities. David watched with pride as his son's dream became a reality. But success was not without challenges. Competitors tried to push them out, and doubts crept in during late nights of hard work and little sleep. One evening, Evan confided, "Sometimes, I feel like we're not enough." Ethan put a reassuring hand on his brother's shoulder. "We are more than enough. We have each other, and we have Dad's strength behind us." David overheard their conversation and joined them. "Remember, boys, the greatest success is not in wealth, but in resilience and kindness." The brothers took those words to heart. They pushed forward, expanding their business and hiring local youth, giving others a chance like they had received. As the company flourished, the family's life improved. They moved to a bigger home in a safe neighborhood. David finally took time off work, his health better than it had been in years. But even with all the new comforts, they never forgot their beginnings. One day, as they celebrated the company's 5th anniversary, Ethan stood before a crowd of supporters, investors, and community members. "We started with a simple goal, to give back to the community that raised us. We believe that everyone deserves a chance to succeed, no matter where they come from." The applause was thunderous. Backstage, David hugged his sons tightly. "You've made our family proud." Evan smiled through tears. "We couldn't have done it without you, Dad." David shook his head. "No, this was your journey. You just let me walk beside you." But life had one more surprise in store. One afternoon, a letter arrived addressed to David. It was from Felicia, the woman who had left them years ago. The letter was short but heartfelt. "David, I've made mistakes I regret every day. I want to meet you and the boys if you'll have me. David stared at the letter, his mind racing. Should he respond? Could the past be forgiven? He showed the letter to Ethan and Evan. We need to talk, David said quietly. The twins nodded, ready to face whatever came next. The letter from Felicia sat on the kitchen table, a silent reminder of a past long buried but never fully forgotten. David stared at it for a long time, memories flooding back. Pain, anger, confusion, but also hope. Ethan and Evan waited patiently as their father wrestled with his emotions. Finally, David looked up and said, I think it's time we meet her. The boys exchanged glances. Neither knew exactly what to expect, but they trusted their father. They arranged to meet Felicia at a quiet cafe on a sunny Saturday afternoon. David's heart pounded as he entered the cafe first. When Felicia walked in, her eyes were red from crying, but her posture was steady. David, she said softly. Felicia, he replied. The twins arrived moments later, their faces a mixture of curiosity and cautious hope. Felicia looked at them and then back to David. I'm sorry, she began, voice trembling. For leaving you. For abandoning our boys. There's no excuse that can undo the hurt I caused. David nodded, feeling the weight of years of pain lift slightly. The boys listened quietly. Felicia explained the struggles she faced, her fears, her mistakes, and how she lost herself. She had hit rock bottom but had since rebuilt her life and longed to reconnect. Ethan spoke first. We're not mad. We just want to understand. Evan added, and maybe start over. The conversation stretched on for hours, tears, questions, and tentative forgiveness filling the space between them. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Over the next few months, Felicia became part of their lives again, slowly rebuilding trust. The twins showed her the company they had built, proud of their journey from hardship to success. Felicia was amazed. You boys have done what I never thought possible. David smiled. It wasn't easy. But together we made it. They decided to use their success to help others who struggled as they once did. Felicia joined them in launching a foundation to support single parents and abandoned children. David watched Felicia, his sons, and the community come together, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. One evening, as they sat together at a family dinner, David raised his glass. To new beginnings and the strength of family. They all clinked glasses, a symbol of hope and healing. The story of a man abandoned by his wife and left to raise twin boys alone had transformed into a tale of resilience, forgiveness, and triumph. The family's journey proved one powerful truth. No matter the pain of the past, kindness, love, and perseverance can light the way to a brighter future. This story teaches us a deep lesson. Sometimes, life breaks us so it can rebuild us stronger. David's pain became purpose. The twins' struggle became strength. And even Felicia's regrets turned into redemption. No matter where you've been or what you've lost, never stop believing in healing, in love, and in new beginnings. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear this. And don't forget, another powerful story is coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed and your notification is on. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.